The crystalline chamber of the Galactic Council sparkled with artificial starlight, its transparent walls reflecting the cold vastness of space. Ambassador James Mitchell fought to keep his expression neutral as Admiral Vectorin's mandibles clicked in barely concealed amusement. The insectoid Imperial officer's multifaceted eyes caught the light as he circled Earth's delegation, his ceremonial armor creating rainbow patterns across the polished floor. Fascinating, Vectorin's translator hummed, his tone dripping with condescension. You've managed to achieve rudimentary fusion drive technology. How? Quaint. He gestured toward the viewing window, where Earth's diplomatic vessel hung against the backdrop of stars. The ship's hull gleamed with pride, despite being dwarfed by the surrounding Imperial vessels. Mitchell exchanged glances with his colleague, Dr. Thomas Reed, their years of diplomatic training being tested to their limits. They'd expected skepticism from the Galactic Council, but this level of open mockery was beyond their worst predictions. Our fusion drives have achieved 12% light speed, Dr. Reed stated, his voice steady despite the tension. We've successfully established colonies on Mars and Venus, and our mining operations in the asteroid belt. A ripple of crystalline laughter interrupted him. The gathered alien diplomats, representing over 300 species of the Empire, seemed to find Earth's achievements particularly amusing. A tall, ethereal being with translucent skin raised a tentacle for silence. Dear primitives, the High Counselor's voice resonated through the chamber. Your species has barely mastered your own solar system. Our slowest cargo vessels achieve 40% light speed. Our battle fleets can cross your entire system in hours. The being's skin shifted through shades of blue and green, indicating what Mitchell's cultural briefing had taught him was patronizing pity. Admiral Vectorin stepped closer, his massive frame towering over the human delegation. Perhaps a demonstration is in order. He gestured to a holographic display materializing in the chamber center. This is your vessel's energy signature. A bright point of light pulsed steadily. And this, he clicked a command, and thousands of dots appeared around it, is a standard Imperial battle group. The simulation played out in seconds. Earth's diplomatic vessel vanished in a flash of light, destroyed before it could even register the threat. Mitchell's jaw clenched, but he maintained his diplomatic smile. We thank the Council for their candid assessment, he managed, though the words tasted bitter. Earth understands that we have much to learn. Indeed. Vectorin's mandibles clicked rapidly, their equivalent of a chuckle. The Empire has ruled the galaxy for 10,000 years. We've seen hundreds of species like yours. Some learned their place, others. He let the threat hang in the air. As the delegation prepared to depart, Mitchell's secure communicator vibrated once against his wrist. A message from Earth. Project Shadowcraft. Final phase successful. Green light for Operation Ghost. His lips twitched slightly as he bowed to the Council. Let them laugh. Let them dismiss humanity as primitive, as beneath their notice. They hadn't survived 2 world wars, countless conflicts, and the harsh realities of space exploration by following anyone else's rules. In the asteroid belt, Dr. Emily Anderson watched the diplomatic feed with growing satisfaction. Around her, in a cavern carved from the heart of Ceres, the first squadron of Shadow-class vessels waited in their quantum docks. Their hulls seemed to shift and waver, as if unable to decide whether they existed in this reality or another. Begin final systems check, she ordered, her voice echoing through the command center. The Empire wants to play their games. Fine, but they're about to learn that humanity never plays by someone else's rules. The massive cavern hummed with power as the ship's quantum drives spun up. Soon, very soon, the Empire would learn the cost of their arrogance. But for now, let them laugh. The best jokes, after all, are the ones you never see coming. Dr. Emily Anderson traced her fingers along the quantum display, watching energy patterns shift and flow like living things. Around her, The massive underground laboratory at Sarah's base thrummed with power as the latest test sequence reached its climax. 5 years of work, countless failures, and one magnificent accident had led to this moment. "Initialize quantum field," she commanded, her voice steady despite the anticipation building in her chest. The test chamber ahead crackled with invisible energy as the football-sized probe inside began to shimmer. Commander David Turner stood at her side, his military posture at odds with the scientific setting. "You sure about this, Doc? Last time we pushed the field this far, we lost 3 probes and nearly cracked the chamber." Emily smiled, though her eyes never left the readings. "That was before we understood what we'd actually discovered. We were trying to make an FTL drive. Instead, we found something better." The probe's outline began to blur, its edges seeming to merge with the very fabric of spacetime. Most of the original research team had called it a failure when their attempts at faster-than-light travel had instead caused objects to partially phase out of normal space. Emily had seen something different. An opportunity. "Quantum state stabilizing at 30%, called out Dr. Jason Martinez from his station. "Field harmonics are holding steady." "Wait." He leaned forward, double-checking his readings. "Power draw is actually decreasing." "This is the first time that's happened." Emily nodded, finally allowing herself a moment of true excitement. "That's because we're not fighting the universe anymore. We're dancing with it." On the main screen, sensor data from around the chamber told an impossible story. The probe was there, fully functional and responding to commands, but to every form of detection they'd borrowed from the Empire's standard suite. It simply didn't exist. "Conventional sensors show nothing," Turner mused, a slow smile spreading across his face. "No heat signature, no electromagnetic emissions, no gravitational shadow. If I didn't know better, I'd say that chamber was empty." "That's exactly the point," Emily replied, bringing up the next testing sequence. "The Empire's ships are powerful, but they're predictable. They've used the same basic technology for millennia. Their sensors all work on the same principles because they've never needed anything else." The probe began to move through a series of pre-programmed maneuvers, each more complex than the last. Its partial quantum state allowed it to exist simultaneously in normal space and somewhere else. Even after 5 years, Emily still struggled to properly describe the physics involved. "Begin weapons test sequence," she ordered, and the chamber's defense systems activated. A series of low-power energy beams lanced through the space where the probe should have been, or rather, where it partially was. "All shots passed through without interaction," Jason reported, his voice tight with excitement. "But the probe's own testing beam." He trailed off as a small target drone in the chamber suddenly sparked and went dark, struck by an invisible beam from the phased probe. Commander Turner whistled low. "We can hit them, but they can't hit us. Do you have any idea what this means for naval combat?" Emily finally turned away from her console, meeting his eyes. "It means we've changed everything. The Empire thinks they've got us beat because they can see us coming from light years away. Their entire defense doctrine is built around long-range detection and engagement." She gestured to where the probe was now perfectly executing a series of complex maneuvers, all while remaining invisible to standard detection. "But you can't fight what you can't see, and you can't hit what isn't fully there. The first full-scale tests of the Shadow Drive start next week. By the time the Empire realizes what we've built, it'll be far too late." High above them, through kilometers of cirrus rock and ice, the first squadron of Shadow-class ships waited in their hidden berths. Soon, they would show the galaxy that humanity's greatest strength had always been finding ways to turn scientific accidents into revolutionary advantages. The Empire's laughter would turn to screams, and the stars themselves would never be the same. The Imperial flagship Eternal Dominion, cast a shadow larger than most cities as it emerged from hyperspace at the edge of the Sol system. Admiral Vectorin stood on his command deck, his crystalline eyes reflecting the distant image of Earth's sun. Behind him, a fleet of 500 warships formed up in attack pattern, their silver hulls gleaming with barely contained power. "Send the signal," he commanded, his mandibles clicking with anticipation. "Let's see how these primitives react to a real display of power." The holographic projection of Ambassador Mitchell materialized before him moments later. The human's face remained frustratingly calm, despite the obvious threat looming above his world. "Admiral," Mitchell greeted him with infuriating politeness. "This is an unexpected visit. The Empire's delegation wasn't scheduled to return for another 3 months." Vectorin's armor plates shifted in irritation. "The schedule has changed, Ambassador. The Empire has grown concerned about Earth's lack of proper respect. Your recent mining expansions in the asteroid belt have not gone unnoticed." Mitchell raised an eyebrow. "We were unaware that mining our own system required Imperial permission." "Everything requires Imperial permission." Vectorin's translator crackled with his sudden fury. "The Empire has ruled this galaxy for 10 millennia. We have broken species far more advanced than yours. Your continued defiance is problematic." Deep within Sarah's base, Dr. Emily Anderson and Commander Turner watched the exchange on their own screens. Around them, crew members rushed through final preparations as the Shadow Fleet's launch countdown continued in silent display. 30 days, Turner muttered. "We just needed 30 more days to complete the final systems integration." Emily's eyes never left the display. "We'll make do with what we have. The first squadron is combat ready. The others will just have to catch up fast." Back in Earth's orbital command, Mitchell listened as Vectorin laid out his demands. The Empire required immediate payment of protection fees, amounting to half of Earth's annual GDP. All mining operations in the asteroid belt would be transferred to Imperial control. Earth's military forces would be reduced to a token defense fleet. "You have 30 standard days to comply," Vectorin concluded, his mandibles spread in what passed for an Imperial smile. "After that, we will take what we want by force. Your primitive weapons cannot hope to." "We understand the Empire's position," Mitchell interrupted smoothly. "Earth will need time to consider these proposals." Vectorin's eyes flashed. "This is not a negotiation, Ambassador. This is the Empire informing you of your new reality. 30 days, not one rotation more." The hologram vanished. In the silence that followed, Mitchell activated his secure channel to Sarah's base. "Tell me we're ready." Emily's voice came back strong and clear. "Shadow Squadron 1 is combat capable. Squadrons 2 and 3 are at 80%. Not ideal, but we can work with it. And the quantum drive's stability. Testing shows 97% reliability at full combat status. We can hold phase stay for up to 6 hours before requiring a reset. More than enough time." Mitchell nodded, though the weight of what was coming pressed heavy on his shoulders. "The Empire's given us 30 days. That's 20 more than we need. Begin final preparations. Operation Ghost is now active." Throughout the asteroid belt, hidden shipyards hummed with activity as the Shadow Fleet prepared for war. Crews ran combat drills in ships that could vanish from reality itself. Engineers made final adjustments to weapons that could strike from beyond the veil of normal space. Vectorin watched Earth's pitiful commercial ships scurrying about their business, completely unaware of the doom that awaited them. His fleet would teach these upstart humans their place in the galaxy. After all, what could one primitive species possibly do against the might of an empire that had ruled the stars for 10,000 years? In 30 days, he would have his answer. And the galaxy would never be the same. Captain Jessica Hayes stood perfectly still on the bridge of the Shadow of Terra, her eyes fixed on the tactical display. Around her, the bridge crew worked in near-silent efficiency as the quantum drive hummed at standby power. 4 other Shadow-class destroyers held formation, all of them existing partially out of phase with normal spacetime. Imperial fleet is moving, Lieutenant Ryan Cooper reported from the sensor station. They're advancing in standard attack formation. 500 ships, just as expected. Jessica allowed herself a small smile. And their sensors still haven't detected us, Captain. Their scan patterns are exactly as intelligence predicted, all focused on normal space phenomena. The bridge's main screen showed the Imperial Armada in all its glory. Massive dreadnoughts led the formation, their silver hulls gleaming with energy shields that could shrug off conventional nuclear strikes. Smaller cruisers and destroyers formed protective screens, their weapons primed and ready. All ships report ready, Captain, Commander Sarah Wells announced from her executive officer's station. Quantum fields are stable at 40% phase shift. Weapons are hot, and strike teams are prepped. Jessica nodded, feeling the weight of history on her shoulders. Send to all ships. Execute Operation Ghost, Phase 1. Let's show the Empire why you should never underestimate humanity. The 5 Shadow-class ships moved as one, their quantum drives allowing them to slip through the Imperial formation, like ghosts through a wall. Traditional physics meant nothing when you were partially phased out of normal spacetime. Admiral Vectorin stood proudly on his bridge as his fleet advanced toward Earth. His sensors showed only the expected civilian traffic, most of it fleeing toward the inner system. Pathetic. He clicked to his bridge staff. They don't even have the courage to face us. Begin charging main weapons. Let's show them what happens to. His words cut off as alarms suddenly screamed across every deck of his flagship. The shadow of Terra materialized less than a kilometer from his bridge, seemingly appearing from nowhere. Before he could process this impossibility, 4 more ships phased into reality at critical points throughout his formation. Impossible, he screeched. All ships, open fire. But the Shadow Fleet was already moving. Their weapons, fired from partial phase state, passed through the Empire's legendary shields as if they didn't exist. Precision strikes targeted shield generators, weapon systems, and engine arrays. Multiple direct hits, Lieutenant Cooper reported with professional calm. Enemy shields are ineffective against phase-shifted weapons. Their formation is breaking apart. Jessica watched as the mighty Imperial fleet descended into chaos. Their return fire passed harmlessly through her ships, the energy weapons unable to interact with vessels existing partially outside normal space. Send to all ships, she commanded. Execute Attack Pattern Delta. Remember your training. Strike fast, strike hard, and don't stay solid for more than 3 seconds at a time. The Shadow Fleet danced through the Imperial formation like avenging spirits. Ships would phase into reality, just long enough to fire, then slip back into their quantum state before the enemy could respond. Vectorin's carefully planned battle formations meant nothing against an enemy that could move through his ships as if they were made of mist. This is impossible. Vectorin raged as another volley of hits rocked his flagship. No primitive species could have developed such technology. No one can break the laws of physics like this. Sir, his second-in-command called out in panic. We've lost contact with the entire 3rd Squadron. 1st Squadron reports critical damage to all major systems. We're being torn apart, and our weapons can't touch them. Jessica allowed herself a grim smile as she watched the Empire's mighty fleet fall into disarray. Send message to Earth Command. Phase 1 complete. The Empire's first wave is neutralized. Awaiting orders for Phase 2. The battle that would change the galaxy forever had begun, and humanity's greatest secret was finally revealed. The Empire had laughed at Earth's primitive technology. But they weren't laughing anymore. The Imperial capital world of Nexus Prime burned with activity as the largest fleet in 5 centuries assembled in high orbit. 3,000 warships filled the sky, their hull plating gleaming with fresh armor and upgraded shield systems. In the Imperial War Chamber, Emperor Zextal's crystalline form pulsed with rage as he reviewed the battle footage from Sol's system. "Impossible," he hissed, his voice causing the crystal walls to resonate. "Show me again how these primitives defeated our first fleet." The holographic display replayed the devastating defeat. Imperial ships, among the most powerful in the galaxy, being torn apart by weapons fire that simply ignored their shields. Enemy vessels appearing and disappearing at will, moving through solid matter as if it didn't exist. Commander Michael Roberts watched the same footage from the bridge of the Shadow Fleet's newest vessel, the Phantasm. His ship led a squadron of 15 stealth vessels, hidden in the quantum shadow state, just outside the Nexus system. Their response is exactly as Dr. Anderson predicted, he noted to his executive officer, Lieutenant Amanda Parker. "They're throwing everything they have at us. Look at those new shield configurations," Amanda pointed out. "They're trying to adapt to our phase-shifted weapons." Michael nodded. "Too bad they're still fighting the last battle. Send word to all ships. Operation Ethereal starts now." Back on Nexus Prime, Emperor Zextal was issuing his commands. "We will crush these upstart humans with overwhelming force. Our new shield harmonics will counter their phase technology, and our numbers will." His words cut off as alarms blared throughout the system. The Phantasm and its squadron had shifted into normal space, already inside the capital's defense perimeter. Before the Imperial fleet could react, the shadow ships had struck 30 different critical targets. Multiple hits on command and control centers, Amanda reported calmly. "Their new shields are just as ineffective as the old ones. They still don't understand the basic principles of quantum phase shifting." Michael watched as his squadron executed their hit-and-run attacks with precision. "Transmit to all ships. Pattern Omega-3. Let's show them what happens when you corner a species that spent its entire history fighting against the odds." The Shadow Fleet moved like a well-orchestrated dance, appearing and vanishing faster than Imperial gunners could track. Their phase-shifted weapons struck with surgical precision, targeting communication arrays, shield generators, and weapon systems. "My Emperor," an Imperial commander called out in panic, "we can't track them. Our new sensors are useless. It's as if they don't exist until the moment they strike." Zextal's crystalline form flickered with fury. "Launch everything. Fill space with so much weapons fire that they can't move without being hit." The Imperial fleet responded, thousands of ships firing blindly into space. Energy beams and plasma torpedoes crisscrossed the void, creating a death field that would have annihilated any normal enemy fleet. But the shadow ships simply phased through it all, their quantum drives allowing them to exist slightly out of sync with regular spacetime. Each blast passed harmlessly through their partially phased forms, while their own weapons struck with devastating effect. "Status report," Michael commanded as his ship phased through the hull of an Imperial dreadnought, firing internal strikes that left the massive vessel dead in space. 15 primary targets neutralized, Amanda responded. "Their fleet is in disarray. They're starting to fire on their own ships, hoping to hit us when we phase into reality." Michael allowed himself a grim smile. "Send word to Earth Command. Phase 2 complete. The Empire's military command structure is compromised. Ready for Phase 3 on your order." As the battle raged on, the Empire was learning a harsh lesson. All their technological superiority, all their millennia of dominance, meant nothing against an enemy that had turned the laws of physics themselves into a weapon. The galaxy was changing, and humanity was leading that change, one ghost strike at a time. Captain Jessica Hayes stood before the gathered representatives of 7 subjugated species in the hidden base on Europa. The massive ice cavern, carved out by generations of human mining operations, now served as a secret meeting point for the growing resistance. Through the thick ice above, the shadow of Terra waited in its quantum state, invisible to Imperial sensors. Your victories against the Empire are impressive. The Arthosian leader chittered, his insectoid features reflecting the blue-tinted light. But how can you be certain they won't track us here? Jessica gestured to the holographic display, showing the Sol system. Because right now, we don't technically exist in normal spacetime. The entire base is protected by a modified version of our quantum field technology. Dr. Emily Anderson stepped forward, her presence commanding immediate attention. We've spent the last month adapting our phase shift technology to work with various ship designs. The prototypes are ready for testing. The assembled aliens murmured among themselves. The Silverian representative, a graceful being of living crystal similar to the Imperial elite, raised a glowing appendage. You would share this technology, even after what our people did as part of the Empire. Humanity understands what it's like to be underestimated, Jessica replied, her voice firm. We're not fighting for revenge or dominance. We're fighting for freedom, everyone's freedom. On the main display, reports streamed in from across the galaxy. Imperial supply lines were in chaos as shadow fleet vessels struck without warning. Rebellion was spreading through a dozen star systems as word of the Empire's vulnerability spread. The first modified ships are ready for inspection, Emily announced, bringing up schematics of various alien vessels, now equipped with quantum drive systems. We've managed to adapt the technology to work with your existing power systems. The energy requirements are higher than our purpose-built ships, but the effect is the same. The Arthosian leader moved to study the designs. These modifications, they would allow our ships to move, as yours do, to strike and vanish. Better, Jessica said with a smile. Your ships are already faster than ours in normal space. Combined with our phase technology, you'll be even more effective than we are. Alarms suddenly flashed throughout the base. Lieutenant Cooper's voice came through the command channel. Captain, we've got multiple Imperial fleets converging on the Artemis colony. They're taking civilian hostages. The alien representatives tensed, but Jessica's expression remained calm. How many ships do we have in range? 3 shadow squadrons, plus the modified prototypes if they're ready. Jessica looked at the gathered aliens. This is your choice. The prototypes are untested in combat. If you want to wait. No more waiting. The Silverian cut in, their crystalline form pulsing with determination. The Empire has kept us in chains for too long. We fight with you. Within hours, a combined fleet of human and alien vessels emerged from quantum space around the Artemis colony. The Imperial forces found themselves facing not just the dreaded Shadow Fleet, but ships of their former subjects, all moving like ghosts through their formation. Multiple targets neutralized, Cooper reported, as the battle unfolded. The alien crews are adapting to the phase technology even faster than we expected. Jessica watched as a Silverian cruiser phased through an Imperial blockade, its crystalline hull rippling between dimensions as it fired. Nearby, Arthosian fighters danced through space, like quantum-shifted hornets, their advanced maneuverability combined with phase technology, making them nearly unstoppable. "Send word to Earth Command," she ordered. "Operation Unity is a success. The Alliance is real, and the Empire's about to learn what happens when their former slaves learn to walk through walls." The galaxy was changing, one liberated system at a time. The Empire had spent millennia building walls between species, never imagining that humanity would teach them all how to simply step through those walls, together. Admiral Catherine Martinez surveyed the combined fleet from the bridge of the Nevermore, Earth's first phase-capable dreadnought. 300 ships of various species hung in formation, all modified with human quantum drive technology. The fleet existed in a partial phase state, invisible to the countless Imperial sensors scanning the space around their capital world. Final systems check complete, Commander James Wilson reported. All ships report ready for phase synchronized jump. Quantum fields are stable across the fleet. Catherine nodded, her eyes fixed on the holographic display showing their target, the Imperial Palace on Nexus Prime. The massive crystal structure stretched 20 kilometers into the sky, its faceted surface reflecting the light of 3 suns. "Begin the transmission," she ordered. "All ships, prepare for Operation Daybreak." Dr. Emily Anderson's voice came through the command channel. "The quantum tunneling communications are online. We'll be able to broadcast through their jamming fields, as if they don't exist." The fleet moved as one, shifting through space like a ghost armada. Imperial defenses, the most concentrated in the galaxy, remained blind to their approach. The palace's crystal spires grew larger on their displays as they closed in. Multiple Imperial fleets detected in normal space, Lieutenant Sarah Chen announced. 5,000 ships, at least. They're arranged in defensive formations, but they're looking in the wrong dimension. Catherine allowed herself a small smile. "Send to all ships. Execute primary plan. Remember, this isn't about destruction. It's about truth." The combined fleet phased into reality in perfect synchronization, appearing throughout the Imperial capital's defense grid. But instead of opening fire, each ship activated specially modified broadcasting arrays. "Quantum-enhanced transmission beginning," Emily reported. "Their communication networks can't block signals that exist partially out of phase with normal spacetime." Across the Imperial capital, every display screen, every holographic projector, every communication device suddenly activated. The truth about the Empire began to play. Records of atrocities committed against subjugated species, evidence of corruption at the highest levels, proof of manufactured conflicts used to justify Imperial control. Emperor Zextal's crystalline form shattered and reformed in rage as he watched his capital's systems fall under the Alliance's control. "Shoot them down. Destroy those ships." But the Imperial fleet's weapons passed harmlessly through the phase-shifted vessels. When return fire came, it was precisely targeted, taking out weapon systems and engines while leaving crew sections intact. "Multiple Imperial ships are standing down," Sarah reported with growing excitement. They're receiving transmissions from their own colonies. The outer systems are declaring independence. Catherine watched as the carefully maintained image of Imperial invincibility crumbled. Centuries of propaganda and fear were being washed away by the simple power of truth. Broadcast through technology, the Empire had once mocked as primitive. "Your empire is built on lies." She transmitted directly to the Imperial Palace, her voice carrying to every corner of the capital. "You called us primitive because we weren't like you. But look around. While you stagnated in your perceived perfection, we learned to break the very laws of physics." The quantum broadcasting arrays continued their work, showing the galaxy how the Empire had suppressed innovation, forbidden collaboration between species, and punished any who dared to think differently. "We don't want to destroy you," Catherine continued. "Humanity knows the cost of war too well. But we will not allow the galaxy to remain chained by your fear and lies." From the palace's central spire, Emperor Zextal watched as his perfect order collapsed. His own military commanders were beginning to question orders. Colonial governors were declaring independence, and through it all, the combined fleet hung in space, their phase-shifted forms a testament to what could be achieved when species worked together instead of apart. The Empire had spent 10,000 years building walls between the stars. Now those walls were falling, brought down not by weapons, but by the simple power of truth and the technology that allowed it to phase right through their defenses. 1 year after the fall of the Empire, the Great Hall of Unity on Earth hummed with activity. Representatives from over 500 species gathered in the massive chamber, their varied forms a testament to the diversity of life in the galaxy. The crystal walls, built with reformed Imperial technology, shifted with gentle colors as Ambassador James Mitchell addressed the assembly. 1 year ago, we were considered primitives, he began, his voice carrying to every corner of the hall. Today, we gather not as rulers or subjects, but as equals. The Galactic Alliance stands as proof that innovation comes not from dominance, but from cooperation. Admiral Vectoran, now a representative of the reformed Imperial worlds, shifted uncomfortably in his seat. His once pristine armor had been replaced with the simple robes of a diplomatic envoy. Behind him, through the hall's transparent ceiling, the combined defense fleet patrolled in formation, their quantum drives allowing them to phase partially in and out of view. Dr. Emily Anderson stood at a podium near the center of the hall, surrounded by holographic displays. The latest adaptations of phase technology have applications far beyond military use, she explained. We're seeing breakthroughs in medicine, transportation, and communication that would have been impossible under the old regime of enforced isolation. The displays showed ships of various designs using modified quantum drives to navigate through once impassable areas of space, medical devices that could phase through tissue to perform surgery without incisions, communication systems that could transmit through any barrier by briefly shifting into quantum space. Captain Jessica Hayes, recently promoted to fleet commander, watched from her position near the hall's entrance. The shadow of Terra hung in high orbit above, a reminder of how far they'd come. Her new first officer, a young Silverian named Crystal Song, stood at her side. "Did you ever imagine this?" Crystal Song asked, her crystalline form reflecting the hall's colors. "When you first took command of a shadow ship?" Jessica smiled. "Honestly, I was just hoping we'd survive. This," she gestured to the gathered assembly, "this is beyond anything we dreamed possible." In the center of the hall, a massive hologram displayed the new trade routes and cultural exchange programs being established throughout the former empire. Species that had been kept apart for millennia were now sharing knowledge, technology, and resources freely. "The empire built its power on division," Mitchell continued. "They convinced us that different meant inferior, that innovation was dangerous, that cooperation was weakness. But look at what we've achieved in just 1 year of working together." The assembly erupted in approval as he gestured to the latest project, a combined research fleet using phase technology to explore the galaxy's most dangerous regions. Ships of every species working together, their crews learning from each other's strengths. Vectoran rose slowly, his mandibles moving in what had become a gesture of respect rather than condescension. "We were wrong," he admitted, his translator carrying the words clearly. "For 10,000 years, we thought we had reached the peak of achievement. We forgot that true strength comes not from standing still at the top, but from continuing to climb higher together." As the session concluded, Emily found Jessica near the exit. "The latest tests are showing promise," she said excitedly. "We think we can adapt the phase technology to allow safe exploration of other dimensions. The universe is so much bigger than anyone imagined." Jessica looked out over the assembly once more, watching species that had once been bitter enemies now working together, learning from each other, growing together. The Empire had laughed at Earth's primitive technology, never realizing that their greatest weakness had been their own inability to change. "That's what makes us different," she said finally. "We never stop looking for new ways forward. And now, thanks to what we started, neither does anyone else." The galaxy had changed forever, and the laughter had turned to respect. But more than that, it had turned to hope. Hope for a future where the stars themselves were no longer barriers, but bridges between all who dared to dream of something greater.